Welcome back to another episode of Bet Sequence. Today we have a special guest. My uncle, he's been a firefighter since 2001. He actually joined before 9/11, but got pushed his training back for a month after 9/11 happened. He was a huge influence in my life. He was a positive role model. He always took us, me and my brother, and we'd always mess around. He gave me my first dip when I was little, even though that was a bad idea. And yeah, I expected this podcast to be or this episode to be a story of pain, but to my surprise, it's a story of mental resilience. And I find it fascinating. So let's welcome my uncle, Kevin.
Hi guys, how's everybody doing?
Oh, we're good. We're good. Okay.
Good.
So, you've been a firefighter you're almost at the retirement age, 20 years. And
20 years, yeah.
Let's go ahead and talk about your training. What kind of training were you getting into? Was it all physical, or were you book learning, or what was going on there?
Yeah, we had a 2-week period at the beginning when I hired on that we did book work for about 4 or 5 days. It's a pretty thick book. Got through it, a lot of reading, a lot of stuff, and then it was get out in the field and play. It was from vacations to going into the burn building and hazmat, things like that. It was packed all day. It was packed.
Learn by doing.
Cool. What's that?
Learning by doing.
Learning by doing, yep.
And the burn building, explain that, because I thought that was a pretty cool thing. I never, we got to go up in the burn building when we were little and check it out.
Yeah, we have a burn building here in Rock Springs, and that's where we can set fires inside the building and play. It's a big rock and cinder block building, and we get to go in there and set fires. There we have 3 different floors. We can go in through the roof. We can go in, many different directions. We can do our search practices. We can do all kind of stuff. It's pretty neat. It's fun to get in there and burn stuff and actually play with live fire. So we get to practice that.
That's awesome.
So,
now when we're getting into the psychological side of things, especially being a first responder, do they give you any kind of training to prevent the mental effects of what you guys do see and what you do?
A huge part of our training is they kind of pounded into our heads that even though we're like in the emergency department, that's what we do. It's not our emergency kind of thing. We're there pretty much after it's happened. The fire is there. We didn't set it. We're there to do the best we can. The medical calls, things like that, car crashes, whatever case may be. We're there to do the best that we can to help mitigate, to try to make the situation better. Putting out the fire, helping with the car crash, helping the patients, things like that. So part of our training, we're not there when it's happening, when it's going on. I spoke to you yesterday about a little bit about this, and we're not, some fire departments, I guess, are getting shot at, things like that, but we're not getting shot at. The police are already there on a lot of the incidents that they got it secured, everything like that. We go in to help. That's pretty much, we're there to help. So I think it makes it easier with that little, line of sight that the situation's already bad. I'm there to try to make it better. So worst case scenario, and knock on wood, I guess, we haven't done that. So
I think that's an amazing mindset to have going through this. I mean, like you said, we did talk, and you did tell me a little bit of your gruesome stories, and with the stuff that you have seen, it's awesome that this mindset that you have has been able to aid you mentally to like kind of keep everything back, keep those demons at bay. I think
Yeah.
that's amazing, because in the military you don't have that. You don't have that mindset that you're only there to help. It's kind of,
Yeah.
we're here for
Yeah.
each other, and it's different. But
Yeah.
it was very intriguing to hear. And so you joined 2001, and then 2005 you volunteered to go to Katrina.
Yes.
What do you do down there
Yeah.
in Katrina?
So when Katrina happened, it wiped out a lot of the South down there, especially New Orleans, things like that. And FEMA was calling for help. And I'm not 100% sure of the numbers, but one of the numbers that I did hear was like 8,000 firefighters responded to help through the FEMA, everything like that. Nobody just showed up. It was pretty coordinated, things like that. And so two of us from the Rock Springs Fire Department just volunteered to go down and help out. And it was pretty interesting to get down there, and they wanted us 8,000 highly trained rescue operators to answer phones. FEMA wanted us to be like on the call center and stuff like that. And they had us taking classes and teaching us how to answer the phones and things like that. And it was quite the mess. There's a lot of good learning that came out of that incident with FEMA and everything like that. It was quite the mess. And, it's hard to keep back a lot of guys that want in on the action. They want to go down there and help. They want to get in to say, okay, you guys have been answering phones. Here's how to do it. Here's the paperwork, things like that to fill out. And it was quite the mess. But like I said, a lot of cool things happened. Learned from that. A lot of neat things have come out of that. We got the incident command system and things like that now. So, because when you go down there now, everyone's on different channels. They're all using their own language. Everybody's codes are way different. And through the incident command system, we've gotten rid of the 10 codes, things like that, like a 10-8 or 10-22. Someone's calling for a 10-8, man, that's different all around the country. So things like that. So it's all plain text now. Everybody just talks normal talk. So it's pretty interesting. It was, like I said, we didn't really have a whole lot going on. They didn't want a lot from us, really.
I find that baffling. Like you have all these people that are there to help and like clean up crew, and you don't utilize it. I don't understand that.
Yeah, it was, like I said, it was pretty weird. A couple acronyms that we came out of FEMA was just fill hotel around, or, FEMA stood for fucking emergency my ass. So there was a lot of cool, but it was fun. It was interesting, very interesting. We never did get into the action. We after the first few weeks and after enough complaining about, come on, really, you got us down here, do something with us. That's going to be what we can do. And so they did have us doing like door-to-door searches, but that was after I had already came back from my door.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So.
And you told me yesterday that your first encounter was prior to Katrina with suicide, and I asked you to specifically touch on a couple suicides that you responded to, and you said your first one was in 2004, and it was a report of a suicide due to shotgun. So you walk into the door, and then how's that?
Yeah. So and we had a few suicides before that. We have a couple every year. Mostly, or they might take pills or things like that. Or so. But this was one that was pretty gruesome. We got called. I guess the guy was out with his family, with his kid, and they were playing and stuff like that. He had his kid for the day, and when he got back to the house, he was on the phone and he was fighting with his ex-wife, I guess, at the time. And then there was a gunshot. And so it was kind of really awful situation because the kid was there, the son was there.
Oh, fuck.
Um, and the guy's friend was there. They're the ones that called 911. So they were actually the first ones to see it happen. And when we get there, of course, like I was saying, the police were there already. So they had the scene secured, stuff like that. And when we walked into the room, he had stuck the shotgun in his mouth and pretty much took the whole top of his head clean off. And so there was brains and blood spatter all over the walls, roof, everything like that. And we kind of just walked in and was like, okay, there's nothing we can do. It's obvious, doing CPR, things like that. That's not anywhere. So,
that ain't gonna fucking cut it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Don't care how good we are at CPR or things like that. This isn't happening. So, that was probably one of the first real gruesome calls that I'd been on. We had some pretty nasty car crashes, of course, throughout all that time. We have a couple a year. We live in Wyoming. We got snow. We got crappy roads all the time. So, but that was really the first kind of a pretty gruesome. It was quite the scene to walk into and stuff. And then, like I said, with the training and stuff like that. And I had a guy that, when I hired on, one of the older guys, he had said something that I started pretty early with in my career, when he would say, don't ever look them in the eye, the patients, things like that, because then there is a sort of an attachment, I guess, or something like that. And the memory, things like that. So that really helped too throughout the career on the calls, things like that. You'll always remember the calls, but the faces thing, it's just not, I don't remember really the faces of the patients and stuff like that. So I think that was a big key, to getting through a lot of that was so.
Do you remember your first time getting on a call or getting called out, and where you were completely detached from your body and your just training kicked in, and you were just like completely separate from what you were thinking or doing? It was just.
Yeah, definitely had a few calls like that. In 2006, we got a call. It was late in the evening or early in the morning, however you want to look at it, I guess, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. We got a call to my parents' address, and I was on duty. That was my station. That was our area. We responded, and I'd have to say that might be one of the fastest times we've ever gotten on the truck and rolled out the building. And we got down there, and it was my dad, and go in, and my mom's crying, and things like that. And of course, we were ones called out, so we beat the other family members, of course.
Yeah.
It was just down the street from the fire station, and saw my dad there in the bed, and we moved him down to the floor. There was no breathing, no pulse. And it was just kind of it. I don't know how it clicked, but it just clicked. And I started CPR. And we had a couple of the other medics that got the airway, things like that. And then CPR was continued by somebody else, and I got the IV and things like that. And it really didn't hit me until we got breathing and pulse back. That was pretty phenomenal. We got him in the ambulance, and I told my captain at the time, I said, I'm riding in the ambulance. And he's like, oh yeah, he's not going to stop me.
Yeah.
For sure. And so it didn't really hit me until we were going to the ambulance. I was kind of shaky then. It was like, holy crap, that was my dad,
Oh,
and
yeah.
things like that. So when we got up to the hospital, so I guess to preface this a little bit, my dad had cancer. He had mesothelioma from asbestos work in the mines and stuff like that when he was younger. And we knew that, and we knew that he had like 6 months. So we kind of were prepared for it.
Yeah.
As a family, we were pretty much prepared. We knew that it was happening someday, things like that. So when we got to the hospital and found out that the cancer had spread throughout and it was time, we kind of disconnected him from everything that we had done, and we kind of let him die. And like any other family member, that's even with prep, we knew it was coming,
Yeah.
Huge surprise. It's a family member, and it was brutal. It was a tough time, and things like that. And, but looking back on it and things like that, it was weird, but in a situation like that, that's where I would have wanted to be. I couldn't have been called from my house to go up and watch the other firefighters and medics working.
Why?
I would have wanted to be in there to make sure we did everything that we possibly could. Like I said, we got breathing and pulse back. It's strong. Everything is breathing on his own. We got all that back. And I know we did absolutely everything. So 0 questions on, was it ran right? Did they do this? Did they do that? So 0 questions. So as it turns out, that's exactly where I would have wanted to be. That's exactly what I would have done. And my older brother, your dad, said that it was actually kind of comforting to them knowing that I was in there. Someone they trusted, someone they knew was actually in there.
Yeah.
Working that code too. And so being a pretty dramatic situation, things like that, nothing really traumatic, I guess, out of it to me, things like that, because like I said, if we knew it was coming, and that's exactly where I would have wanted to be.
Yeah.
That's do what I could.
That's mind-boggling to me, because I think because your brother, my dad, had cancer, and I think if I was in a situation where he were to die of cancer and I were to be that firefighter, I don't know if I could do it. Like, I don't know. I don't think I have the mental capacity to separate the emotional attachment, because he is my father, from the job that needs to be done.
Well, that was about 5 years into my career. I'd done many codes before. It wasn't the first one, so that was nice. It was our first shift, and I did take the rest of the shifts off and the next on funeral leave, because it was brutal and it was hard. But like I said, I don't know how it clicked or how whatever, but when I walked into the house with the AED and the medical bag, it was kind of game on. It was, and how it clicked in, I don't know why, but it was game on. We did what we had to do, and we did what we were there to do.
Yeah.
But like it also said, when I got into the ambulance, I was shaky.
That's the adrenaline.
Okay,
the adrenaline
that was
jump.
that's and so the preparation might have helped. Like I said, we had 6 months that we knew this was coming.
Yeah.
A little earlier than we thought it would. But we had prepped. So I think it would have just been out of the blue. My dad's healthy, everything's going good, to get the address for the 65-year-old male, that's not breathing and no pulse. Man, that could have been a whole different ballgame. So
I never thought of it like that.
So I don't know. It's and like I said, that's exactly where I would have wanted to be. even if it was a surprise,
Yeah.
that's where I would want. Then there's no questions. No,
Yeah.
did they do this? How, you know, they might have messed that up, or they might, you know, no, that was actually, and even to this day, of all the codes that we've ran on, man, that one was a good one.
So
And
after you doing this for your father, my grandpa, uh how do you relax? Like, how do you break away? How do you escape from the situation to try to get some free time, or to recenter yourself? Like, what are you doing at this time in your life to kind of be normal?
I golf a lot. Um, the last couple years, I've got projects. We had an unfinished basement in our house, so I've been finishing the basement. Things like that, things to just keep busy, of course, you know. Try not to dwell on it, of course, you know, things like that. That's it. Sometimes some calls might carry you over for a couple days, things like that. But we debrief and talk about every call the second we get back to the station.
Oh,
And sometimes
I I didn't know that.
back to the station, we talk about, you know, things like, oh, we could have done, you know, or instead of the way we did, we could have, you know, and we always talk about what we did, how we did it, if there was anything we couldn't, you know, could have done better, things like that. And like I said, most of the codes, if we get breathing and pulse and stuff like that back, of course, there wasn't anything else we could have done better, but maybe there was some tweaks or this or that we do afterwards.
That's a really critical tool that I think, because that's like a group therapy. That's, you know, everybody
Yes.
knows, everybody
Yeah.
has the same medical knowledge, and
Yeah.
you cross
Mhm.
check each other. Did you do this? Yeah, I did that. And then
Yeah.
it makes it able so that you can think of it in a linear timeline instead of just like chunks and pieces.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And every time that we have crew meetings for the whole crew to come in, we always go over some of the calls that we've had, anything interesting calls or bad calls, you know, things like that. And then we discuss it as a crew, and then everybody can throw in, oh, did you do this? You know, it's like, yeah, we did. And that was, you know, that worked out really well. Or maybe next time try this. Oh, that's a good idea. So we discuss the calls again as a whole crew. Everybody has their, you know, inputs. Everybody talks about it. And I think that is a big key to kind of get it out there. Like you said, it's a group therapy thing. We talk about, you know, and there's been calls that, I guess, knock on wood again, involving children, babies, things like that have gone really wrong. Luckily, I have not had a baby or a child die on me yet.
Yeah.
Boy, I hope I go the rest of my career and never have it.
I do too. I do too.
So.
Okay. So, wow, I didn't know that you guys kind of had like a group therapy thing. That's really awesome. And something that is really cool about the first responder in general, not just fire department, but everybody else with it that comes with it, is you find this bond of brotherhood through this horrible shit that you see, and they are pretty much your brothers. I mean, you're with them, you know, almost more than your family sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
That's something I always admired with you and one of your coworkers, Levi, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty awesome.
We become more than friends most of the time. We are family. I live with these guys 10 days a month. We work 24-hour shifts, you know, and 10 days a month, I live with these guys. They're who I have breakfast with, I have lunch with, I have dinner with. And as a fire company, if we got to go somewhere, we all have to go. We truck with us, and we have to go no matter what it is. And so they're family. And So to discuss that, things like that, what happened afterwards, things like that. We always talk about, you check your ego at the door. There's no egos. You discuss it. Let's see what, there's never step one, assign blame. There's never that. We joke about that, it's like, whose fault, and, but there's never assigned blame. There's never egos. If it hits you, weird, talk about it. What could we have done? Let's help out the next time. If this happens again, what do we need to do? Things like that. That's how our mindset's on getting better at what we can do to help that situation if it happens again,
Yeah.
So
that's an awesome way to look at it. Check your ego at the door, because I know from our experiences in the Army, it's like 100% ego. So it's it's hard to visualize an environment where you're working with family, but it's not. I would guess testosterone driven to the max.
Well, like I said, I only live with these guys 10 days a month, but if you're out in the military and you're deployed, now you're living with these people for all the time, 365, man. So there's definitely got to be a brotherhood there. And definitely not ever going to pretend to know what's going on, what you guys have been through. I thank all of you guys for your service, things like that. I don't know if I couldn't do that. That's, to me, some of the stories that I hear, things like that. It's a totally different situation. So I am not going to compare the fire department at all to the military, things like that.
But there's a lot of characteristics. There's a lot of characteristics that the fire department and that brotherhood that they share with the military in general.
Right. There's some things that cross over, but there's definitely some brutal stuff that's not a situation I'll ever be in.
Yeah.
The main thing is we always
not ever be in.
We always assign blame though, so it's always the leader's fault.
Yeah. It was more times than not that it was my fault, because I was the team leader and I had Hendrix over here trying to fuck up the comms for the whole deployment.
You get bored. It's good. It's good training.
Yeah. Idle hands, huh?
He's the worst of them. You leave him alone too long and he's over there playing hide and seek with satellites and shit. All right, we'll pause right there. Pause.